everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I share two books that we love and we think you should read when, Brad.
Definitely read right now. And before we dive into our two books, I got to ask you a question, Jen.
Yeah.
Do you notice anything different today?
Well, I noticed that you are in sort of, some Paul Bunyan gear, some plaid,
True.
like little casual clothing. We're used to seeing you in the suit and tie with your principal hat on.
This is true. It was actually a trick question, though. I was barely exposing a new soda. Have you heard about this on the news?
No.
Replacing Sierra Mist. It's called Starry.
And what's your verdict?
Well, it's pretty good. Not as good as your book talking, but it's okay.
This is the content our 3.5 viewers come for.
Exactly.
Right?
We got to give the people what they want. So I just felt like I would be cutting edge cool. I hear everyone talking about this stuff. So
I haven't heard of it. So I'm excited. I've got the Brad Gustafson It's Okay endorsement.
Sorry. Thank you for always putting up with me. It's pretty special.
I love it. It's the best part of my week, every week. So what you been reading, my friend?
Yeah, I have a recollection of you book talking this last year. You can confirm that if I'm just fabricating that. But I'm, per usual, catching up to you. I came across this book. It was actually part of kind of a principal conversation. I'm like, I got to share this with people. It's very special. So picture book, if I didn't already say that. If you're looking for a picture book that has art that's very immersive and just feels good, has a powerful message for any time of the year, I would highly recommend you read Thankful. Did you book talk this?
Yes, okay. I love it so much.
Okay, I thought I remembered you, and there was one page in particular I remember you kind of pointing out, so I think that's what triggered my memory. But Elaine Vickers, illustrations by Samantha, Cotterill, and I just wanted to highlight a couple pages for people that I loved, because books connect with people in different ways. So the story starts out, every year when the first snow falls, we make thankful chains to last us through December. And as a principal friend of mine recently said, like, this doesn't have to be a book for November or December. Yeah. I think that's why I love it so much. I connected with this book because the character talks about finding things to be thankful for every single day of the year, and she's building this chain. Thankful for like big things, up high things, sun, moon, but also just there's a mindful part. A dog, round and soft, that wiggles and jumps when I'm happy. I love that. And then at the end, I'm skipping over so much goodness because you kind of get the gist of it. But one of my favorite parts and what I connected to most was at the end of this, she's like, "Good night, world." And then she whispers, "And thank you." And you can kind of see, I should have done a spoiler alert because I don't think you're supposed to give away book endings, but I'm doing it this time.
It's okay.
Okay, but if you can look, I'm having a hard time capturing the beauty here. I just loved how the view to the world is framed by this thankful chain. Yes. And it just had me reflecting, no matter what month or what day, it seems like my best days are where, even when I'm trying to collaborate or instigate change or question something, if I'm also centered in gratitude, because there is much that I have to be grateful for, it just helps my outlook, and it frames it kind of in a large part in reality, again, because there is much to be thankful for, and sometimes I just need a reminder. So I just love this book for the art, the message, the mindfulness that's kind of embedded in it, and just the practical way to be grateful.
Oh, I love that. I love the illustrations in that book so much. And I remember at the time, like, reading about how they were done, and it was fascinating to me. But, I'm a sucker for books that mix that media where you have like maybe some traditional illustrations with also paper craft and diorama or real found objects and all this stuff. I eat that stuff up. And so I love the illustrations in that book so much.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's one of those books you could read over and over, and I could see kids or classroom going over it over and over again and noticing different things each time. Here's the page, Jen, that triggered the memory with you.
Yeah.
I remember you I think you pointed it out to me because the kiddo was thankful for a teacher trying to help. And you just you noticed this happening
Yes.
on the page, but it's like, that's an example of, you could look at this thing 100 times and notice special little
Yes.
nuances every time.
Yeah.
So
The other thing I was thinking about as you were talking is, I don't know who said this, but I've heard the expression before that the opposite of sorrow is not joy, it's gratitude. Because when you think about or really embrace the idea of or remember something that you're very grateful for, then feelings of joy come, feelings of being safe, feeling of all those things that help to sort of snuff out sorrow come with the gratitude, right? And I was thinking about that book in terms of helping kids navigate feelings, kids who telling them, like, oh, let's try to be happy, or here's something we can be happy about. Sometimes I don't think that really works when a kid is, or even an adult is immersed in something sad. But I do think trying to think of things you're thankful for, even tiny things like, how your dog feels in your arms, or the fact that they're serving chicken nuggets at lunch, or whatever it is, like even tiny things that can help alleviate sorrow. And I think that book would be a really helpful resource for that.
Completely agree. I had heard the same thing, that gratitude is a good counter to anxiety, that it's hard to have
Yes.
those two feelings at the same time. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay.
yeah,
Well,
well, thank you. As always, thanks for sharing that early on. See, I do pay attention, Jen.
I know you do. I love it. That's the best part of this show. I mean, like, really, for us, just as human beings, it's just a way for the two of us to connect each week, share books we love. Your books get added to my pile, my books get added to your pile, and vice versa. So it's just a bonus. It's like icing on the cake that we get to share a few with our 3.5 viewers as well, right? So
Right.
that being said, I think our books are connected this week in that there's definitely a theme of gratitude throughout both books. But also they're connected in the way that you said, you don't think you should give, you had heard you're not supposed to give book spoilers and stuff. And I think it's going to be hard not to with my book, in the same way that it's kind of hard not to with that book as well. But I'm also going to break one of my unspoken rules and share a book that isn't been released yet. So this is, instead of being able to read this now, our 3.5 viewers are just going to have to plan now to order this book, plan now to read it as soon as it's available. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the cover. It's a new graphic novel by Jarrett, which I bet a lot of people will know from his National Book Award finalist graphic novel, Hey Kiddo. This is a companion graphic novel. You don't have to have read the first one to read this one. But if you've read the first one, you will recognize some of the people and some of the little Easter eggs, connections between the two. But you may remember that Hey Kiddo was a memoir about Jarrett Krosoczka's life growing up as the child of a parent who was incarcerated as a result of drug addiction, and how he lived with his grandparents, and how his, childhood, especially his adolescence, was affected by that. In this book, Jarrett talks about, this book takes place over the span of just 1 week, and then some glimpses into the future after that. But the majority of the book centers around his experience as a high school student. He's only 16, where he volunteers over the summer at Camp Sunshine, which is a camp for kids who have serious illnesses, most of which are cancer. And their families, not only are the kiddos who are ill there, but also their families are. And Jarrett is warned at the beginning. He's worried that it's going to be a very sad experience, that he's not going to know how to deal with people who are coping with such illness. And he's warned by the camp counselors, sort of experienced camp counselors in the beginning, that he's going to end up getting a lot more out of this experience than he gives, even though his entire training is about giving, and how putting those families first. The families get to eat first. They get to be in line first. It's always about the families first. And of course, what he finds through his week and then after is how very true that is. I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is the type of book you probably need to have some tissues handy, because there's a lot of joy in this book, but that joy is balanced with some real punches to the gut as well. And I think that has everything to do with how adept Jarrett Krosoczka is at making us fall in love with the characters, the people that he describes and gives us a glimpse to in the book. The illustrations, of course, are amazing because it's Jarrett Krosoczka. The book, when it's finally out, when it's the final copy, is going to be full color. But in the ARC, which I have, there's a lot of black and white. And some of that black and white, I kind of hope they keep because it was really powerful, especially the scenes that are like around the campfire at night, you know, because it's a camp. They're out in the middle of Maine. Of course, they're, around the campfire at night. You can imagine how those drawings are. But I wanted to show one of them to you. There's a scene in the book where all the counselors and their families, one of their activities is to build a boat. And then together they put a wish in the boat, and then they let the boat sail off in the evening into the lake with candles. And I hope you can see how gorgeous it is on the Zoom call here. All these little kiddos, there's the moon and some text up there, letting their little wish boats off into the lake at night. It's so powerful and beautifully done. I hope they keep some of that in the final version, but whatever they do, I'm sure it'll be amazing. But I would say while Hey Kiddo was maybe for a little bit older reader, because there was some pretty tough stuff in there, I think this one actually extends to a little bit younger. I think 4th, 5th graders for sure would love this book, but high school readers will love it as well. And what I want to point out to our 3.5 viewers, most of all, is to make sure you don't skip the author's note at the end. Because one of the themes in Hey Kiddo was Jarrett talking about how art really saved him. He had a really traumatic, tough, challenging adolescence, and art was really a savior to him. In this book, he talks about how in like as a compliment or in partnership with that, volunteerism actually became something that really helped and saved him, and how later on in his college years and then past, he volunteered at many camps like Camp Sunshine and continues to be friends with some of those families to this day. So it's called Sunshine, and the subtitle is How One Camp Taught Me About Life, Death, and Hope. And it's by Jarrett Krosoczka. And you can't read it right now, but I hope you'll order it or put it in your to be read pile right now.
Yeah, well, what I think people can do right now, if this is the same Jared that's really active on Twitter,
yes, and lots of social media.
Yeah, okay. I've just noticed, I think it's the same one, such a giver and a sharer on Twitter with resources to empower kids' art and writing and stuff. So
I'm not sure. I think you might be thinking of Jarrett Lerner, who I love and adore. Yep. There's lots of amazing Jarretts out there, but I would say that Jarrett Krosoczka is very does a lot of great video tutorials and videos to really inspire artists and illustrators, etc. So I think they both give a lot to their community, just in maybe different ways.
Amazing, Jen. On multiple levels. Thank you. So Jen and I have a resource of past books and years, and we're on to a new year, so it's a new tab at the bottom. But if you go to bit.ly/read_this_now, you can see all the goodies from all the years. And these are some of our first books we've talked about in 2023.
Yay! Thank you, my friend. And to everyone else, happy reading, y'all.